10,000 years ago, long before the Armada or the Trubian Empire threatened the galaxy, Lord Zed and his army spread fear and terror throughout the galaxy. As countless worlds and star systems fell beneath his vicious heel, Lord Zed would task Rita Repulsa the mission of conquering Earth, and appoint one of his most trusted lieutenants to be her second-in-command, Goldar. Goldar would follow his new Empress to Earth's moon, and from her new palace initiate their conquest of Earth, only to be defeated and imprisoned in a magical dumpster by the galactic sage Zordon of Altar. In 1993, 2 astronauts discover the dumpster and accidentally free Goldar, Rita and her henchmen. They resume their conquest of Earth. But it would not be long before Goldar would discover that Zordon had chosen 5 teenagers with attitude to be Earth's new defenders, the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. And when finally the 6th Ranger entered the fray, Goldar would develop a vengeful hatred and vendetta against Tommy Oliver. But Goldar wouldn't be the only villain to have a deep hatred for Tommy Oliver. Many years later, Terence Smitty Smith loses out on a chance to work for Anton Mercer to Tommy Oliver. Instead, Smitty goes to work for a business rival. But in a near-fatal accident, Smitty was caught in a lab explosion where he was brutally damaged. Mezicog found his ruined body and rebuilt him with cybernetic technology into Zeltrax, a black-armoured cyborg. Zeltrax, now twisted by hatred towards Tommy, would embark on a vengeful vendetta against Tommy, who he blamed for the tragedy that destroyed his life, and condemned him to live out his days as a cyborg. What if, by some quirk of fate, these 2 evil warriors were to meet on the battlefield? Who would emerge victorious in a one-on-one battle? Goldar the battle-hardened galactic warrior, or Zeltrax the cybernetically armoured warrior? Would Goldar's brute force and magical abilities overwhelm Zeltrax? Or would the cybernetic terror's technological weaponry prove too much for Goldar? Goldar's powers are all magical based, and though not at the same level of power as Lord Zed or Rita Repulsa, he is still a very powerful mystical warrior of his era. Goldar is insanely strong, being able to lift Jason Scott Lee with little effort and throw him around like a rag doll. Like many Zordon-era villains, Goldar has teleportation abilities, allowing him to appear and disappear at will, a definite advantage over Zeltrax, who has to rely on Visiportals that are fixed-based to Mezicog's base. Goldar can quite literally teleport away and reappear behind Zeltrax to inflict lethal damage. He can also use his magical teleportation powers to summon weapons and items to his hand, a possible advantage if he were to have his sword knocked from his hand in a confrontation with Zeltrax. Goldar has the ability to shoot energy blasts from his eyes, as well as channel energy blasts through his sword, allowing him to attack his enemies from a distance. Thanks to Lord Zed returning his wings in the Season 2 opening episode, The Mutiny Part 1, Goldar has the power of flight, allowing him to take the fight to Zeltrax from the skies. He also has the unique ability to grow to giant size at will without the aid of Rita's staff or Lord Zed's magic. Goldar would often use this ability to combat the Megazord by himself or to aid one of Rita's monsters, but unlike Rita's monsters, if the Megazord was about to finish them off with a killing slash from the Power Sword, Goldar would instantly retreat by teleporting out at the last second, leaving the monster to his death. Goldar by no means was a fool, despite Rita's snide remarks, as he knew when to retreat and survive to fight another day. Zeltrax is a cybernetic warrior of all his powers and abilities based on technology, the remnants of what's left of his damaged human body encased in a heavily armoured cybernetic armour that can also keep him alive as a life support suit. He can emit energy blasts from his hands and, similar to Goldar, channel energy blasts through his sword at his opponents. Due to Zeltrax's cybernetic augmentations, he is insanely strong and has lightning speed reflexes. Zeltrax later gained a super-powered form through the special underground spring that flowed beneath the Tree of Life in Reefside, increasing his powers and giving him some new abilities, such as being able to make a duplicate of himself to fool Connor McKnight and his fellow Dino Thunder Rangers into thinking he was destroyed. He could also now dematerialise back and forth into a gaseous form at will. Both Zeltrax and Goldar's ability to channel energy blasts through their weapons and from themselves would make for a spectacular firework display in a ranged firefight, but I believe they would both come to the realisation that they had reached a stalemate, forcing them to use their other powers to gain the upper hand. Goldar's teleportation abilities would certainly be an asset to him, as Zeltrax reliance on the inferior Visi-portal's fixed-base teleportation would be no match for Goldar's ability to disappear and reappear anywhere he wants. Although Zeltrax could transform into a gaseous form to counter Goldar's superior teleportation ability, I personally don't believe Zeltrax can maintain his gaseous form, as he seemed to be only able to stay in that form for a short time. Plus, Goldar's ability to fly and attack from above would also pose a significant threat to Zeltrax. This, coupled with the fact that Goldar can grow to Megazord size at will, would prove too much for him in a one-on-one confrontation. The fact is, Goldar has far more greater powers at his disposal, so I have to give this round to Goldar. Each warrior has their own Zord. Goldar has Cyclopsis and Zeltrax has his Zelzord. But this versus video is a one-on-one duel between the two as warriors and not their Zords, so for the purposes of this video, their respective Zords will not be a factor. Goldar's main weapon of choice is his sword, and due to his thousands of years of life, has had a long time to become a very skilled swordsman. Being a battle-hardened veteran of many campaigns for Lord Zed and then Rita Repulsa, very few warriors are a match for him one-on-one. As I stated earlier, he can channel energy blast through his sword, thus giving it a dual function as a ranged weapon. The majority of Goldar's body is clad in a gold titanium armour that's resistant to most but not all energy blasts and bladed weapons. Zeltrax wields a sword and is shown to be highly skilled in its use. As I said earlier, like Goldar, he can channel energy blast through it at his opponents. He has also on occasion used an axe for up close and personal combat. Both Goldar and Zeltrax swords have the same dual function, giving each of them a melee weapon that can switch instantly to a ranged weapon, though Zeltrax does have his fallback weapon in the form of his axe if he were to be disarmed in a duel with Goldar. They both wear armour that can withstand heavy punishment in battle, but whereas Zeltrax's entire body is covered entirely, leaving nothing exposed, Goldar's face and wings are exposed, giving him some vulnerability. That being said, Zeltrax does have a minor edge in weaponry against Goldar, but in a duel, a minor edge may prove a decider on who walks away or lies dead on the battlefield, so I very narrowly give the edge in weaponry to Zeltrax. Goldar is a cunning and deadly warrior who's been alive for tens of thousands of years and fought in countless battles across the galaxy, making him a battle-hardened veteran and a powerhouse of a warrior. So it's no surprise that he has been shown on many occasions to be more than capable of fighting multiple opponents at the same time with relative ease. He quite literally ploughs through the ranges like they aren't even there. Zeltrax is a very capable martial artist, being able to combat an unmorphed Tommy Oliver as well as in his Black Dino Ranger form. Zeltrax has not only shown to be able to take on any of the Rangers in one-on-one combat, but also hold his own against Doggy Kruger, the SPD Shadow Ranger. But the fact is, Goldar is in a completely different league to Zeltrax, as he has been an active warrior for thousands of years longer and has far greater combat experience over the younger villain. Plus, Goldar has shown far greater fighting skills against the Rangers when either fighting them one-on-one or as a group. I'm not saying that Goldar would have an easy victory in hand-to-hand combat confrontation with Zeltrax. I'm sure Zeltrax would give him a run for his money. Well, for a certain amount of time. But in the end, Goldar would emerge victorious. And now, the verdict. It is in my opinion that Goldar would emerge victorious against Zeltrax. Basically, it comes down to the fact that Goldar's superior powers and fighting experience would prove too much for Zeltrax to deal with in a one-on-one confrontation. That being said, Goldar wouldn't find Zeltrax an easy victory, but in the end, the younger villain would be defeated by the battle-hardened galactic powerhouse that is Goldar. I hope my fellow Power Ranger fans like my video. Of course, my verdict is purely my own opinion. Maybe my fellow Power Ranger fans believe Zeltrax should have won. Feel free to make a comment below. I'm interested in hearing from my fellow fans.